Hello, DF. My question is regarding the CPU reviews the industry do, and if we need to rethink how we approach them, but more in a realistic PC scenarios compared to consoles. Looking at the reviews of the 9950X3D and the 9800X3D, it seems pretty clear the latter is better value. I personally went ahead and upgraded my 13700K to a 9800X3D, only to find that the moment I have anything else besides my games open, Discord streaming, YouTube in the background, or even Spotify, the game drops performance, sometimes to ranges below my old chip. My question is, why do most reviewers still review gaming CPUs as this monolithic, single-task, single-game situation where that's not how most people will use them and mimics more of a console usage than a PC environment? Well, it's an interesting question, and I am reminded, actually, of the Ryzen 1 review period, where we got these chips in for review, and the benchmarks were stratospherically good, right? Because, 8 cores, cheap prices, what's not to like? And then we were looking at the gaming scenarios, and it was like, I even got in some really great G-Skill memory, which I think you've still got, Alex, because I gave that to you.
Yeah.
And but we couldn't get gaming performance, apart from in Crisis, oddly enough, to be better than a 3770K. That's right. And that's disappointing. And, the response to AMD was like, but have you tried streaming with it at the same time? Have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing that? Basically doing things at the same time to occupy the other cores that the games weren't particularly using. And in those scenarios, exactly as Xerxes is saying here, if you're doing other things with your CPU and not devoting the CPU task power to all of the tasks going on, not the gaming, then yes, there's going to be a degradation in performance. But going back to how we review these things, does everyone really run? I guess Discord is a thing that people would be running in parallel with gaming. But, ultimately you're running a whole series of other tasks which people may or may not be doing when they definitely will be gaming, if you see what I mean, simultaneously. And you kind of have to come up with various use case scenarios, which means like duplication of benchmarks, which means exponentially increasing the workload in actually making a CPU review. And we only have typically a few days, at most a week, with these products to review them. I don't know what you think about this, Alex.
And the idea of a multitasker review is an interesting specialty review that could be done for a product, I think. Not everyone should do that for the same reason not every channel looks at the same stuff anyway. But I think that is a very interesting one. I'm very curious about this watching a YouTube video while gaming thing, though.
Yeah.
I definitely can't do that. Holy crap.
2 displays, dual screen.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I've listened to music before while getting B-roll for a game that I think the story is like bleh, right? I've done that tons of times. It's pretty often, actually, but I have a different setup, capture. I've got a capture setup. So, yeah, but that is an interesting idea, and I've never seen anyone look at that. And it wouldn't surprise me too much if the E-cores really are going to be threaded that way in Windows to make them be used in those moments. Finally, they have a use, darn it, right? So that'd be pretty cool to actually see a bench of.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to what would be tested, because I don't know how many use case scenarios can we come up with. I don't know. Oliver, thoughts?
If you want to multitask in that fashion, I think there are CPUs for that. In particular, like the high-end Intel CPUs, and then like the Ryzen 9 series CPUs from AMD. Something like the 9950X3D, I'm sure would be better for that purpose. But it would be interesting to see tests in that fashion, but just performance drops with like a web browser open or Discord open. Maybe I wouldn't expect to see that as much. But if this user is talking about like Discord streaming, like streaming in addition to gaming, that's obviously a specialty workload that needs some accommodation, either in terms of a second PC or in terms of having a fairly high-end CPU there. Personally, though, I don't really empathize with this problem as much because I don't use my PC for anything but gaming. I use my Mac for everything, basically any kind of personal use, work use, whatever. So I rarely have anything open but Steam, the game itself, and maybe Fan Controller, a couple other little widgets like this. So personally, I'm not too inclined towards having a very multitasking heavy workload, but I do understand that for some people that's probably a big part of their gaming use, especially if they're playing games like, MMOs and social games and Counter-Strike. I'm sure you're having a lot of kind of voice chat and comms and Discords open and things like that might make this workload a bit more relevant.
I'm fascinated at the concept that Spotify could diminish gaming support performance on a 9800 X3D. That suggests to me that Spotify's got issues. To be honest, maybe I'm wrong. It's an interesting conceit. I think it's an interesting idea. The question is, what would the workloads be, and to what extent is it actually relevant to a lot of the audience? I think there is an interesting situation there with the e-cores there, Alex, because chances are those sort of tasks would be delegated to the e-cores when gaming. Well, let's just say that the advantages of the e-cores are questionable, right?